Hey guys, welcome to Cyberbullying Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via vídeo podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para conan abrir. Cyberbullying Studio é plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos no Facebook, subscribe no YouTube ou na plataforma de podcast preferida. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde está. Cyberbullying Studio, powered by Credits, botou ideia? Credits educava e prepara a abo para vir um empresário exitoso. De business plan, guia personal e préstamo para negócio até com 100,000 florim. Vira para mês donho com Credits. Subway. Passa na Subway para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Com 7 localidades rond Aruba. Não está cerca de Ibo. Subway. Swing Masters. Organizando events, conferences of weddings, Mr. de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing of flat screen, Swing Masters está claro para ser boa fiesta éxito. Swing Masters. E agora, Cyberbullying Studio é plataforma de podcast de Aruba, está apresentar.
If you know, you know. We are back for 2022, finally. Welcome to the 4th episode of Stima, Autista, the podcast, and the first of 2022, with its mission to create autism awareness for Aruba and the world. As you can see, we're all in here at the Cyberbullying Studio. My name is Byron Nasir, along with my co-host Kay, and we have two guests who are with us here today because this one's going to be a very special one. We have the president of Fundacion Autismo Aruba, Miss Carolina Thiel-Span, and we have another new guest here at the podcast, Miss Alysha.
Hello, everyone.
And this one's going to be a special one because I want to take a little deep dive into a topic that is very delicate for all of us in the world right now, and that is the topic of the state of mental health and bullying. And I'm going to warn you that it contains a conversation regarding suicide and bullying. So please do note, viewer and listener discretion is completely advised. Before we can get to the conversation, we have adapted the news. Of course, I have adapted the news from the news sources, Thiel-Span newspaper, and also Reuters. But also, I got two new news topics that I added to the news briefing today, our technology and community. Let's get to the deep dive of the news, shall we? Last December, and going through the new year, worker unions like Stima, SEPA, SIWA, and STT, SBA are pressuring the government of Aruba to bring down the 12.6% salary cut, which was introduced right at the beginning of the coronavirus crisis. All that too much until the February 11th ruling from the judge to let the government to rethink their plans from cutting the salaries from the workers. And as a result, all worker union leaders decided to hold protests until March 2nd, where the ruling is. Now, I got some good news for those who want to follow the coronavirus pandemic, because a few days ago, from the government of Aruba, during a press conference, it is announced that due to a low active case tally and hospitalizations in the island, it is official that almost all measures, like mask wearing, is gone. But it kept the requirements for testing, except if you're vaccinated or boosted, you will get into the island no matter what, without any tests. And that's good news for tourists. And even at the airport right now, mask wearing inside the airport in the restricted areas are still mandatory until March 1st. However, in the check-in halls and the arrival halls, it's required. It's not required, but it's recommended. It's still recommended to wash your hands, social distancing, And of course, wear a mask. It's still optional right now because COVID is, not easing, but it's still manageable for us to take care of ourselves, even when we need it. Now, I have a world news, and it's very troubling. According to Reuters, there's been tensions between Russia trying to take Ukraine over, and that worries NATO and other world leaders in the West, especially the United States. While Russian rebels are trying to evacuate some from the East Ukraine, the U.S. and the President of the United States, Joe Biden, warns that Russia could attack Ukraine in any moment now. That's one topic that will be worrying for all of us, so we will keep a close eye about this. Also, in sports, have I told you about the Pan American Games in the previous episode? Well, this year held the Beijing Winter Olympics, and the Secretary General of the COA, and the Vice President of the IOC, Ms. Nicole Hooverts, was there over the torch relay and all the duties as the IOC Vice President. Athletes compete in numerous winter sporting events to get the chance to get the gold medal. And there was Dutch glory in speed skating, short tracking. But in the hockey, the Canadian women's hockey team got gold medal over the USA. It was a revenge well served. And it was the last time we saw Shaun White competing in the Winter Olympics as a snowboarder in his super pipe. It was an emotional farewell for Shaun White. So happy for that. While the games are about to close so soon, so we have to know that there are controversies in the Winter Olympics, like the trouble of the human rights, which is also a cause of concern. Some diplomats boycotting the Winter Games. Now, I have community news. If you watch the post from Cyberbullying Studio and from Fundacion Autismo, you might have noticed that on February 5th at the Aruba's Cultural House, Casa Cultura, there was the Volunteer of the Year Award. So for the fifth year in a row, City Aruba organized this special event where it showcases volunteers that have paved the way for a better world for the island of Aruba in 2021. And I'm so happy that I'm one of the 62 volunteers from different organizations, sporting clubs, and foundations who were recognized by City Aruba. And I was so happy to be Volunteer of the Year.
As you should be, Byron.
So happy to be part of Fundacion Autismo from the beginning, when I first stepped into the foundation in 2021, helping with different projects like Workplace for Inclusion, which is the crown jewel for me. Yes. And I'm so proud to be a Volunteer of the Year. And there's even more to come for me, so be pending. And I got a lot of technology news. Have you guys noticed that SATA's cable service is about to be phased out? Well, it is happening right now because SATA is switching from cable to IPTV, Internet Protocol Television, with a small white box which can bring you live TV, radio, streaming, and more. And it's starting to roll out slowly. It started in a hotel area. Some parts, it's roughly 1,000 households. 1,000 households in Aruba switched to IPTV. And the director of SATA NV said that between 2 to 3 years, Aruba will completely phase out cable. What? And the space that is used for cable will be added for IPTV, for better internet speeds and for stability in TV.
I was gonna say, I really hope for that because I mean, we do need better internet for all of this to work,
You bet. Even for the studio.
right?
Indeed. It's a win-win situation for all of us because we needed to cut the cord on cable, and that's the beginning of the step. What Seta did, they introduced it a couple of years ago, and now it's happening. It's happening IPTV. It's happening so soon. So keep your eyes peeled for IPTV in your borough, in your area. All right, now we can get to the delicate conversation about the state of mental health and bullying. Like I told you again, viewer and listener discretion is advised because it contains a conversation of suicide and bullying. I'm going to ask the questions for Alysha, while Kay will answer the questions for Carolina. And let's just say, I hope everybody listens to us. It is a very tough, delicate topic. I'm sure everybody could listen to us even clearly than ever.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Byron.
As you know, if you watched the news, Aruba news last week, you might have noticed that there was a case of bullying at the school, which forced one student into the hospital with a hersenschutting. And that is a tough call for case of bullying. And it's not just in Aruba, but also in the United States, where it's also aggression and bullying in school, which is why. And also, some people could commit suicide if they were bullied all the time. And that led to me to popping out this tough topic here about the case of suicide and bullying and the state of mental health right now. Because mental health matters. It matters to all of us. It's not just you. It's not just me. It's all of us. We need to educate more on the topic of mental health. Because to say, you're not alone. Because we all can meet in the space between. Let's get to it. Alysha, I know this is a tough topic. We'll begin right now. Can you tell us what is mental health in general?
Hi, Byron and Kay and Carolina. Thank you again for the invitation. Okay, so mental health is a topic that lately everyone's talking about. It's basically the emotional, psychological, and social well-being of a person. It helps us determine how we react to certain situations, especially negative ones or unwanted ones. So it helps us take the right choices, the healthy choices.
Of course, we need to be more conscious of our mental health and our choices that we have to make for all of us. Because if you make a wrong choice, it could stop you in our tracks. But what we know right now, if we pick a right track, a right way, it will go all the way very good. Now, in every person, not all of them are the same. There are issues regarding everyone's mental health. So what are signs that someone struggles with mental health?
There are a lot of mental illnesses. One of the most popular ones are depression, anxiety. We hear a lot about schizophrenia as well. So every mental illness has its own symptoms. If we take depression and anxiety as an example, a depressed person is very sad, lack of motivation, maybe sleeps too much or doesn't sleep at all. In anxiety, it's kind of the opposite. You can't concentrate. So yeah, I mean, lack of concentration. You feel very energetic, but not in a good way. So it feels very uncomfortable. No sleep whatsoever. So for every mental illness, there's a different type of symptoms. And sometimes we don't really notice the symptoms on the other person, and that's what makes it scary.
They try to hide it, the symptoms. Yeah. They try to hide. Yeah, but I gotta say, on my perspective, you can't hide those symptoms forever. You need to spread it out to someone you love, of course, your family, your mom, your dad. We need to say that You can't hide it. You just have to speak it out. And for me, and for all of us, it is so true.
It is very that's very true, Byron. And you know, the thing is that society right now labels, not only right now, but it always labeled mental illnesses as a weakness. So we kind of try to be the strong person and be the happy one, and we hide all our emotions behind this shield, which makes it hard for us to deal with them.
Exactly. All right, we have to switch from mental health to bullying right now, and Kay has some questions for Carolina about bullying. Kay?
Hey, Carolina.
Hi, Kay.
Hi. Hope you're happy to be here.
Yes, I am. I always find it so interesting when I'm a guest at the studio, and of course, I love talking to you too. So thank you for the invitation once again.
So my question is, what is bullying?
Okay, so I decided to look it up because I do want to give its actual definition according to a dictionary, and then we'll kind of go from there. So the dictionary says that bullying is when somebody seeks to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone, especially if they're perceived as vulnerable. Okay, so I think the last part is really important because bullying is a form of exercising like power and control over someone. That's why it has like the harm, intimidation, and coercion part of it. These usually are, forms of exercising power over somebody else. And that would mean that you probably need somebody who is perceived as weaker or more vulnerable than the bully. Because and we have seen this. Sometimes, they'll try to bully somebody who is perceived as less vulnerable, but then they'll fight back, be it in, verbal way or physical way. So this is a very special part of it, that it's usually also done by people who might be bigger physically, older, or who perceive themselves as like smarter or wiser. And bullying happens in so many different ways, right? Bullying can be something very direct, like laughing at somebody's clothes or the way they talk or something that, they're doing. But it can also be very subtle. It can be through criticism that is not constructive, which is continuous. You can also do it through things like forcing somebody to do something that they don't want to do out of fear of any like repercussion from not doing that. And I think that's also what makes it so hard to pinpoint when it's like teasing versus bullying, right? When it makes that turn onto truly being toxic and harmful. So it's a very harsh conversation to have sometimes with people because people might not even directly recognize that they are being bullied or that they are bullies, because it's also taught as a defense mechanism to kind of like the idea that survival of the fittest means that you have to be like the strongest one, the meanest one to make it work. So it's really important for us to not only be able to identify if we are being bullied, but if we are being bullies too, be it intentionally or unintentionally. Yeah.
It's true. By the way, if you might have noticed, if you go into Fundacion Autismo's Facebook, last year I wrote a testimony regarding bullying for another show, and if you can find the testimony about my bullying, please, you can go to Facebook Fundacion Autismo. We might repost it.
I was going to say that, Byron. I will repost it because I think it's a very good testimony to share. So I will find a testimony to repost. And I think we might also have like a soundbite of that interview where I read your testimony and also explained it a little bit. And indeed, I agree that to understand this topic today too, it's nice to look at personal experiences. So definitely, Byron, I will share.
Of course, stay pending on Fundacion Autismo's Facebook and Instagram for that soundbite of my testimony on bullying.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, so on bullying.
Yes.
There are so many types of bullying. One of them is cyberbullying. how can we prevent cyberbullying?
Oof. Okay, so cyberbullying is relatively new. When I say relatively new, because it's tied to the internet, and the internet, but even further to social media. Um, Cyberbullying, in my opinion, is even scarier. And I say in my opinion because I'm also of the generation who experienced this, especially at the beginning, where we had last social media platforms. But you see how easy it is for somebody to hide behind like a fake name, a fake profile. So cyberbullying is basically any time that you bully someone through these platforms, right? And it happens in the form of things like comments, like very hateful or harmful comments. It happens in the form of humiliation, so posting content that shouldn't have been posted. This is also where you see things like revenge porn, for example. That's one of like the biggest ways of cyberbullying. But also sharing people's secrets, so intimate conversations, vulnerable conversations they may have had. And cyberbullying is growing, sadly. It's not decreasing, it's not becoming less, but it's actually growing, because the reality is that if you're a bully or if you want to participate in, bully behavior, it is a much safer way to do it than in person. In person you might get punched for saying something really mean, but online they don't even know who it is. You can tag team, you can have a whole group tag teaming on someone. You can create a whole army of like fake bots, right, or fake accounts, and just do that. So it's a very efficient way, and I use that word for its meaning of doing that. But yes, so it's anything like that. And you can also see where like people post actual videos of themselves talking mean things about other people or sharing mean things about other people. So that's about it for cyberbullying.
Affirmative. There are shows that are related to cyberbullying. One is in Spanish, and that is a very interesting meaning that we have to tackle cyberbullying. We have to limit ourselves from social media, like for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We need to be educated on that cyberbullying.
Yep.
And that is important.
And you also see, Byron, that most of these platforms, they're huge, first of all. So it's really hard to screen through like every single post and everything. So they'll have guidelines where specific words like hate speech will be flagged and reported, or other people can report something. But a phenomenon that we see here in Aruba is, and I say it's very particular to our situation here in Aruba, is that our language takes more time to be interpreted. So that means that if I report hate speech in English, or even in Spanish or in Dutch, which are languages that are recognized within these pages, these websites, these platforms, it's very easy for them to screen it through the computer and be like, oh yeah, flagged words, and it's down. But when you do things in papiamento, it's really hard, and that is something that I have noticed. I am a intense reporter. I report posts all the time. Like if I see you say mean things or things that I believe are hate speech, like I will report you, and I will have everybody I know report you too. Like I do that because I just think that kids look at me kind of weird, but I do that. You know this.
I do it too.
Yeah. So I do it. So I do encourage other people too, especially for content that is in languages like papiamento that might be harder for the computer to catch on them. Report it, send it to your friends and be like, hey, this is kind of messed up. Can you report it too? Because we have to do the work too. Once we stay silent, we're kind of part of it too.
Exactly. If I can remember, it was a day on my birthday, 21st birthday, I was discriminated out of nowhere.
Yes.
And my mom had to be silent until, bam, I broke the silence and to report on what has happened. And you guys reported on the discrimination of another show.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that you guys took stand about this discrimination. I like a rant. And so happy that that this foundation, Fundacion Autismo, stood tall on this cyberbullying, and
Yes.
is unacceptable.
Yes.
Now, I have to turn the conversation back to mental health. Clearly, one of the signs of mental health are depression and suicide. For many people, feeling oppressed, which could lead to committing suicide, or being bullied, also commit suicide. For people with autism, it's no exception. No exception. So, Alysha, I have a question for you. Can you relate the difference between oppression and suicide?
Yeah. So depression is a mental illness. Depression makes you act, feel, and think in a negative way, and the cause of depression can be suicide, right? I'm not saying that everyone that's depressed commits suicide, but there's a big group of depressed people that feel depressed that end up committing suicide.
Exactly. And if you noticed last time, there was an artwork that came made last year in an event called Less Art About Mental Health.
Oh my gosh, yes. I need to go pick it up.
Yeah.
I really want that art piece back and have it like at the office of Fundacion or just at my office.
And it was so good. It was so good that the organization team received for us a third place spot.
Right, we even got in like third place. Yes. Oh my gosh, I really need to go claim that.
The third place spot.
Yes, we did. We did,
the
Byron.
social
You're
media
right.
contest.
You are right.
To win.
You remember.
Yeah.
Of course I remember.
Kay and I
Kay,
worked
sorry.
so hard on it. I think our brain was dead after that.
Yeah. All right, we have to turn attention now
Yes.
to suicide prevention. And suicide prevention is vital. There are ways to prevent suicide, but how can we prevent it?
You know, I'm a firm believer that you have to start acting up as soon as you feel like the changes. For someone that is experiencing depression, I would say whenever you're feeling sad for a longer period of time, talk to someone. You know, try to notice what are the changes. If you feel like you lack motivation, again, talk to someone, get help. It's not embarrassing to feel depressed at all. It's actually very common. It's one of the most common mental illnesses. So get help. Sometimes we might think that we can do everything on our own, but sometimes we can't. And for other people that live or that know people that are going through a depression, talk to them and see how you can help. Try to motivate them a little. Just try to be that person that they miss in their life.
Exactly. Remember I said in the beginning, we all can meet in the space between.
Yeah, for
Yes.
All right, Kay.
For Carolina,
Yes.
what are the characteristics and effects regarding bullying?
Okay, so like I already mentioned, bullying in general and what people are doing, but characteristics. So usually you'll have a bully who is somebody who also struggles with insecurities, especially when we talk about like children who are bullies. It's either a learned behavior from home, so they either experience bullying at their house directed at them or another member of that same household. So you'll have maybe parents that speak in a certain way to each other, where they're constantly taunting each other, or the child, where like if the child doesn't do something right, they'll laugh at them. So usually it's a child who is manifesting something deeper, and it's either an upbringing that is serious, but it could also come out of insecurity. So maybe even they'll come from a household which seems, very stable and balanced, but they might be struggling with insecurities that they do not know how to express. And then they'll express it at school, and this is where you'll find like a lot of dissonance with like parents, because they'll be like, but my kid's not like that at home, like what are you talking about? So there might be something else going on in there. Maybe they were bullied before, like in a previous school or in another setting, so if they do sports and stuff. So it's really important, once you establish that there is a bully participating in bullying behavior, to figure out where that behavior is coming from and try to tackle it from the root. So not only punishment, I think we have this tendency to just go be directly to the punishment of the bully, but that usually only reinforces this behavior, because they have received the attention and acknowledgement for that behavior. So we want to focus a little bit more on why is this happening? How can we diminish it? So work on self-esteem, letting them understand that bringing somebody else down does not mean bringing yourself up. But yes, effects. And then on the receiving end, what you will see is you could get somebody who becomes insecure, right? You'll see kids with severe anxiety because they don't want to go to school, so it will manifest in ways like that. So you'll have kids that do not want to go to school, like they'll cry and they'll throw like complete tantrums, and it may seem like a little absurd why they do not want to go to school, but this could be a reason. So always check in. Also, sadness, right? You'll have kids who lose interest in things that they really love. So for example, if the bullying is happening in an activity like a sport, something that they were usually very excited to go to, all of a sudden it's like, I need to go, and you don't see them really participate. Isolation, you'll see that too, because kids and people in general, and I shouldn't say just kids, because adults are intense too, but you'll see a lot of times is that you'll have one person or like a small group be isolated, because people behave in pack behavior, which means that they will try to side with the strong one, and that means that if they see somebody being bullied, they will be perceived as the weak one, and people will slowly start to move away, because one, they don't want to be a target of that bullying, but also it's just human behavior kind of. So it's also a rewiring of that very primal, as I want to call it. We are such like smart beings, so we really need to rewire our brain and move away from that instinct behavior of wanting to side with like the strong person, and genuinely speak up, genuinely be aware, like, why is this happening, where is this coming from? But yeah, usually it's a little bit of this, and then bullying to its severe form, it can cause severe anxiety that then turns into severe depression, which could lead to something like suicide. And we have seen this, right? We have seen news internationally, like in the Netherlands, but also in the US, where you will have children of very young ages, 14, 10, 12, doing something like committing suicide, feeling so upset and so sad and depressed that they believe that there is no way out at that age. So it's very telling of the impacts of bullying and the effects that it can have on somebody. Definitely.
By the way, you popped up the Dutch thing, because it was I was watching a Dutch documentary called Eindeloos Gepest, and it was a young girl who at age 14, throughout the entire years, got bullied.
Yep.
And that led to suicide.
Correct.
On November 2020.
Yeah.
I think you should watch it. It is very touching. There was a link right now at NPO Start. You can go to NPO website to catch up on that documentary. It is so touching.
Yes, and Byron, something like also bullying that is tied to other types of discrimination, because discrimination is not necessarily bullying, but it can be sort of a form, but you will have severe bullying because of discriminatory terms or characteristics. So you'll have people that will be bullied just because of who they are. So you talked about that, right? Like being autistic, that is something that somebody might feel like they have grounds to bully you upon that. What we also see a lot here in Aruba is bullying based upon nationalities.
That's
or
right.
races, ethnicities. So these are very serious as well, because you have to then target the bully behavior, but also the misconceptions and the discriminatory beliefs that are tied to these groups. So there's lots of work to be done.
Yes, there's a lot more work to be done. We have to create diversity. Diversity matters.
Yes.
Now,
I think Kay had another question, didn't you, Kay?
So you mentioned like bullying at school.
Uh-huh.
How can schools act when there's a case of bullying?
Okay, so we just saw one recently, right? First of all, I mean, I don't think there's a one size fits all and like this is the magical guidelines you should follow and then there will be no bullying at school. I wish there was, but there isn't. So, but one of the first things is that adults need to be aware of what bully behavior is in the first place. You will see so many adults that do not know where the line between like teasing or even teasing in general, you know, like what's acceptable and what's not, like what can be harmful and what's not, which is also tied to cultural beliefs. So schools really need to dig deeper in that. You know, it's not just following a workshop against bullying, but genuinely working on misconception, genuinely working on actual effects of these type of behaviors. And especially, you know, if kids look at adults. So if you will have adults in a school that also participate in bully behavior, that also constantly tease their students, students will feel more empowered to engage in that behavior. But also, if you see something going on, act like immediately. So we saw on the news, right, a couple days ago, where, you know, the one that you mentioned with the girl who ended up in the hospital. But, you know, that was going on for like a week, or, you know, the intenseness. I mean, apparently the bullying was happening for months already. But where you had somebody, you know, somebody taunting somebody else or like teasing or bullying somebody else for their parents' ethnicity, for their parents' nationality. So if you see children teasing somebody else for like something like that, you have to act immediately, you know, as teachers, like this is not acceptable and we will not accept this behavior. So I think it's also that the idea that children or the youth can resolve problems themselves, they can only do that if they were provided with sufficient tools to be able to recognize a conflict and resolve it. If they do not have these tools, they will not be able to resolve it themselves. So we need to switch that idea to use that moment to teach conflict resolution, and then you can be, you know, a little bit more certain that they are equipped with these tools. But we don't get that in school. It's not like they teach us in like kindergarten or primary or, you know, high school how to go about conflict resolution. We don't get that. So the idea that kids are able to figure it out themselves and that they will handle it themselves in the playground is, we need to let that shit go. Like, you know, we really need to work on that. So here you see where it goes up to the point where there's like physical aggression, where even if the adults are present, like the amount of anger and resentment and sadness that has built up is so big that at that point adults are basically useless in that conflict resolution. So, you know, again, like just at the beginning, snip it, but also be aware that we, you know, don't always have the tools, but as adults, you are responsible for these children. So you have to act and you have to do something about it.
That's right. I heard at the school last time, zero tolerance. Zero tolerance is important in all schools.
Yep.
Remember, when I was right now at a school called Alvin, thankfully, there were no bullies. No bullies at all. So happy to be part of the school project and just happy to saw. As you can see, right now we're going to the final two questions, and there's a little scuffle right now, but we'll work through that soon.
Yes, we will. So I think for context, like we mentioned at the beginning, like you mentioned at the beginning, right, Byron, this might be a triggering conversation for some people, including us. You know, we are talking about this, but this can also be triggering for us. So, you know, as we see, it was triggering for your co-host, and that's okay because these conversations are harsh. They need to be happening everywhere in every household and every community. But that also means that some of us will realize things and feel things. So we're going to give Kay a little break, but I have no doubt, Byron, that you can lead us through the rest of this podcast.
Sure thing. As you can see, Kay's seat is vacant, so don't worry about Kay. She's all right.
She will be fine, yes.
She's going to be all right. I know it's tough. I know it's delicate, but we can go through this together.
We can.
Now, for the last two questions for Alysha, I have to say there are not the governmental organizations. There are instances that need to educate about suicide prevention. So how can the NGOs and foundations teach the community about suicide prevention? And are they doing enough?
I must say that the last years, they've been doing a lot for mental health. We've been seeing a lot of improvements, a lot of workshops are being given to the community about mental health. I do think it's still a taboo in Aruba especially. But I don't want to put the whole weight on the organizations, but I do want to tell the Arubans, the people living here, that we have to stop making mental health seem like something weak, a mental illness, like a weakness. We've been seeing a lot of male people that don't want to express themselves, don't want to go to a psychologist because, no, I'm a guy, I'm supposed to be strong, I can't cry, I can't do anything, right? So, for example, I'm very glad that Kay just, she let it out. She was feeling sad, and she acknowledged this, and it's okay. And I want more people to be like that. When you're not feeling good, when you're not feeling okay, talk about it and feel whatever you have to feel. It's fine. Feelings are there to be felt, right?
Like I said last time on her show, Sincerely Carolina, it's okay not to be okay.
Right?
Sure.
I mean, I think and this is like toxic positivity as well. We are so obsessed with the idea that we have to be like really strong and like, calm and collected and content at everything that we have and we do, but sometimes we're not. And that's fine too, Byron. That is fine too. And we should not be afraid or embarrassed of showing that.
Indeed. Like Kay is experiencing right now, and I experienced it last week when I saw the documentary.
And I appreciate you reaching out when you felt that. I really, really do.
Thank you, guys. Now, I have to go to the resources on prevention, on mental health awareness, and suicide prevention. Are there resources for all of us to prevent suicide and for mental health awareness?
For sure. We have governmental organizations like Sociale Zaken. We have SPD. We have Respaldo, right? You can get free treatments here. And there are also a lot of psychologists, clinics, so private practices. You can call me as well.
Of course.
Yeah. So you can contact me as well if you need to talk or send me a message or anything. Byron uses me as a resource a lot.
Of course.
He just sends me like a voice note and we'll talk a little bit until he feels better. And I think Carolina, I think, is also a person that you can just contact and talk to, So yeah, you can get professional help. It could be free or you can pay at a private clinic. But I think you can also just contact your close friends and family, and for sure they'll be there.
On my perspective, in the near future, I think soon we could have our own suicide prevention hotline.
Yeah, that
to
would
prevent
be great.
suicide, to help out, to bring in extra help to those who were trying to commit suicide and who were going to prevent suicide. On my perspective.
I think Telefoon pa Juventud has something, right? For the youth.
I was gonna say Telefoon pa Juventud. I wanted to add that as well. I think it's 131.
Yes.
131.
And you can call them anytime, and just talk to them.
They also have like a chat platform. So one of the people on the board are my colleague at work, and she always tells me, and I know that the chat platform also works really well because some people might be afraid to talk on the phone and somebody else hearing them. So definitely, I kind of like that they have that. Yeah. And also think about organizations that may not be necessarily related to suicide prevention, but could help you with a struggle that might be leading you to feel like suicide is the answer. So think about that too. So if you're struggling with a specific type of depression, that's coming from an issue, go to them, right? So be it an illness, be it a abusive situation, be it about children. So like moms struggle with this a lot too. All of these kind of things, you may also find a lot of resources through foundations that target that specific issue that will help you work through your feelings. So like Alysha said, reach out. Just reach out. And trust me, people will help you. So even if you reach out to like the wrong organization or the organization that might not be able to help you directly, they will show you the way.
Exactly. Well, before we can close out the podcast, I have an announcement to make.
You do?
Well, we have told you last time that we needed a right time slot for the podcast. And we just announced that the podcast is now going to be on every Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Joining at the Tuesdays, Florin Talk and UFW on one of the other podcasts from Soppy Mix Studio.
It will be once a month, right, Byron?
Exactly.
Okay.
It will still be once a month.
Yes.
And it's now on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock. All right. I know this is a delicate conversation we just got through. We know that Kay is okay. So we can wrap up the podcast right now with the closing statements from you two. So, guys, what are your closing statements?
Well, just like we mentioned, we talked a lot about bullying and how it can lead to depression, which can lead to suicide. I really want people to pay more attention on how they speak to others and what exactly they say. Everyone's struggling. I'm struggling. Byron's struggling. Carolina's struggling. Kay is struggling. We all are in our own struggles. So sometimes saying something mean may not be a big deal for you, but it could be a big deal for others. So just pay a little bit more attention how you talk to others. Just be nice. It doesn't cost anything to be nice. Just be nice, ask others, hey, how are you feeling today? Make small conversations. And for the ones that are struggling, just ask for help. There's help everywhere. So just don't be afraid and just ask for help.
Exactly. Carolina?
Yes. Thank you, Alysha. I agree 100% with what you just said. So there is this little quote that I think resonates a lot with who I am, but I also hope that everybody who reads it or sees it understands it. And it says, "No act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted." For me personally, I don't feel like acts of kindness cost me extra energy or something, but I know that if you are, established in a way that you do not include kindness in your daily practice, where this is not part of who you are, I highly encourage you to try practicing that, and I promise you it will not be wasted, not only because it will not have a negative impact on others, but it will also have a positive impact on you. So yeah, I want to leave you with that.
And I have one more quote before we also leave the podcast, and it's from Lily Reinhardt. Lily said, "Asking for help is the first step. You are more precious to this world than you'll ever know."
Yeah.
And that is completely true.
Yes.
And I hope this conversation resonates you and others to be more conscious about mental health and to know that it's okay not to be okay. I hope everybody listens to this episode of Stima and Autista, the podcast. I know all of you were aware about this very clearly, to others to know that there is help. There is help out there to prevent suicide, to stop bullying. We all can act together as human beings for us to be more conscious in ourselves to prevent bullying and to prevent suicide.
Yes, Byron, I think it will be also, it's a good moment to say that, as a foundation, we have been working a lot to change the narrative of seeing somebody with a disability or, just any difference in general as less than. Let's celebrate these differences and please, not use these as a form of, just bullying somebody. It's horrible. Like Byron said, we have experienced it, how things like, being autistic is used as insults. And we really need to move away from that. So if this is part of your language because it's learned, I understand that it's learned behavior. If you use the R word as an insult and stuff like that, think about it, practice to change it because it is harmful. Even if you're not directing it directly to somebody, others will hear it and it will affect them. So I do want to leave people with that.
Exactly. Well, I hope everybody listens to us just like you all do here on Stima Autista, the podcast. Stopping Studio knows it. Autismo knows it. We all can act together to stop suicide, stop bullying, and to be aware more on mental health.
Yes.
I would like to thank the sponsors, Subway, Swim Masters, and one notable sponsor who is not behind me, Credits. Thank you to Credits as well. And I hope to see you next month on the podcast, which is now every Tuesdays of the month at 3. Next on the menu coming up on Something Like Studio is Flirting Talk and then UFW. And Carolina's going to have her show on Mondays as usual. Sincerely, Carolina, every Monday at 6:30.
Thank
All
you,
right, thank you
Byron.
so much for being with us. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to us on this Stima Autista, the podcast episode. And I hope everybody can learn on this episode to others. Spread the word out there. And I'll hope to see you real soon. All right? Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you the next time.